The solution to catastrophic wildfire is simple. Prevention, prevention, and more prevention. And clear-cut logging does not provide that. If we choose not to go down this road of utilitarianism, greatest good for greatest number, our futures are diabolical. Welcome to the amazing Doug Fir podcast. A true environmental guru. Doug Fir, the defiant Doug Fir, here to talk to you about small family farming. How are we as entrepreneurs planning on overcoming this scourge of corporate farming? It's not that easy because things have got so far and so crazy and so insane that it's hard to think that we could actually go back to the way things used to be. But I have a plan to go back to the way things used to be, where you could make money on a 40-acre farm or a 20-acre farm or an 80-acre farm. You could make a very, very good living. Seems like, wow, wait, come on. How are you going to make money on a 40-acre farm? Well, it's called value-added small family farming, where instead of selling to the corporations, simply put, you're selling to the consumer directly. And when you sell to the consumer directly, you make all the money. And the corporations don't have a stranglehold on your operation. So right now, if you don't have 10,000 or 20,000 acres, you stand no chance. And even those guys have to put through so much, have so big of operating costs that it's really hardly even viable for them at the levels that they're at. Big corporate family farming. Because everything all goes to the big corporations. And when it goes to the big corporations, they capitalize on turning it into value added for themselves. We turn this back around. We sell to the consumer. We make all the money. So here's my plan. We have to quit clear-cut logging. That's in my other podcast. It's a horrific thing. We have to go in and brush and weed and thin and space and deadwood, or we're going to lose everything. We have to get corporate profiteering out of our existence, out of our framework of society. And if we don't do that, and we just let it continue and continue, it's diabolical. They will end up owning everything, which they almost do. So a lot of people go, wait, small family farming, you're never going to be able to change that. It's too far gone. Well, under the Competition Act, these big corporations are not allowed to operate this big. And I have precedents from 1984 where people were refused to be able to purchase certain elements, certain businesses, because if they would have purchased them, they would have had too much market share. Therefore, they would have formed a monopoly in that industry, and that they were refused. Well, what happened now? How come nobody's refusing these big, huge operators, corporations, and they just keep swallowing and swallowing up more and more and more and getting bigger and bigger and bigger? Under the Competition Act, it says, if you go down the rabbit hole, that the Competition Act, besides labeling and all the other rest of the stuff that they talk about, but they don't talk about this segment. The Competition Act is designed to protect the small to medium-sized business from big corporation and big government. But what's happened is big government, which is illegal, under this act, has collaborated with big corporations. And therefore, this act is not observed by our government. And that's how everything is carrying on, and this corporation is swallowing up this business, and so on and so forth. If we go back to 1984, when this thing happened with a farmer that wanted to buy grain handling and was refused, that same business is owned by Cargill. He was just a farmer that had $9 million to spend on the Alberta grain terminal, and they refused him. But that grain terminal is ran by Cargill, which is a multi-billion dollar corporation that goes global. So how did they get that when that rich farmer that wanted to buy it was refused? So we have to go back in time and figure out this mess to see what happened at the beginning so that we can correct that mess now. And under not only civil, but also criminal charges for becoming a monopoly and having too big of a market share, there is charges. If there's a conviction, there's fines, there's seizure of land of that corporation, there's seizure of assets, and they can be kicked out of the country. Well, it says that in the Competition Act? Yep, it says that in the Competition Act. You have to read a little bit between the lines and kind of figure out your direction, but in essence, that's what can happen. So if, let's say, Canada, just like Russia, decided to go organic, we would have to get rid of GMO. And our biggest player in GMO is Monsanto. So Monsanto, McCain's, Cavendish Farms, there's so many of these big corporations that own so much. And they just got bigger and bigger and bigger because they're corporations. They're not small family farmers. So what my plan is we go into our eastern slopes. We eliminate clear-cut logging. We go in, brush, wheat, thin space, deadwood, then burn. Well, there's an enormous harvest of wood that comes out of that. Well, if we build small family farms out of, let's say, thinning Banff out, let's say we could build 100,000 of them. There's 55,000 acres that need to be thinned. And we draw some of that equitable lumber out. We build these small family farms. And then instead of selling to the corporations, we sell to the consumer. And for example, I'm a pig farmer, third generation. And I started a little place up by Bragg Creek called the Cowboy Roast House. So I started raising pigs again. And then I would take the pigs to the butcher and have them blue stamped and certified. Haul them up to Bragg Creek, where I was also certified, my kitchen, as well as myself, in food handling. And I created this thing called the Cowboy Meal. And the Cowboy Meal was in it to go, knife, fork, napkin. It had meat, mashed, corner beans, fresh baked bread, butter, pickles, water, coffee, pop, all in for $25. Here you go, hot and ready, right out of the roaster. Well, on 4 pigs, if you were to take it to Maple Leaf, you'd make about $1,200, $1,600 on those 4 pigs. But if you take it to Bragg Creek, like myself, doing value-added small family farming, or also what I call economic utilitarianism, which is taking everything, I was able to make $10,000, sometimes $12,000 on those same 4 hogs because I was selling it to the consumer and not the corporation. So back to Banff, back to Jasper and the recovery that's all going on, Waterton. You've got many different places in BC that need recovery. There's so much of that burnt timber that can be milled into timbers. So you mill the outside, make your square. You got a little bit of char maybe, but it's still, for a small family farm, something you can build with. And there is enormous amounts of that stuff out there. I did a cut on Highway 92, where I got out of the vehicle, and it was a fire that had happened between Radium and Banff. Massive fire. And I got out, and the fire, it was like 12 years earlier. So I got out, and there was some wood that was laying on the ground like this thick, and I cut some pieces with my chainsaw. Well, if you look at it, it's a little bit rotted for the first inch on the outside, but the rest of it is all protected. That stuff is still out there, needing to be recovered. Can you imagine all those burned trees and all that thinning that we could do on our eastern slopes and going into BC? The amount of wood that needs to come out of there is immense. So to say 100,000 small family farms across Canada, ship a few in containers to Africa and Europe and whatnot, all pre-cut, ready to install. All you need is the farm animals. This is a way where we can develop a small family farming or a large small family farming community. And then we set up these markets. So yeah, you know how Save-On is and all they own and overweighty, and it's insane, the corporate grab that they have on all these markets. So we set up our own markets, our farmers market, we'll call it. I have a couple of better ideas, better names, but basically a farmers market. And we sell our product hot and ready, and maybe in a rawer form. Some farmers don't want to be at the front line selling their products. They'd rather sell it to somebody that sells it. But now all of a sudden, because we're getting away from corporations, these are all small private businesses. And this is what we need to build the middle class in Canada. And if we choose to keep going in this diabolical direction, we're going to end up with nothing, except for some big corporations that own everything. So we build these small family farms out of brushing and weeding and thinning and spacing and deadwooding. That means that we're saving these forests. We're making these forests healthy again. We're saving the small family farm. We're bringing it back to the way things used to be of old, instead of the way things are now, with so much insanity. This, my friends, is sanity. This is going back to simple ways of producing your food. And if we get rid of all these corporations, we can get rid of all this GMO. We can get rid of all this seed oil that's making everybody fat and stupid. We can start working on our supply line. So not only are we going to produce a better product than these corporations, but we're also going to be supporting a very healthy supply line where we don't have to wait for a truck to come from Texas to McDonald's so that we can eat. We can eat within our communities. The money's going to be spent, just like Pattison, and Save-On Foods. He makes all the money. Do you think he needs any more money? Do you think we need money? This has to change. And using this word, this word utilitarianism, we can bring it all back to the range that things used to be at. The best that we can. Some things are so changed that we'll never ever get back. But at least if we can identify that stuff is out there like that, we can start working around it and making differences. My Cowboy Roast House was amazing. I did bison brisket, I did beef brisket, I did a lot of roast pork shoulder, and I would slow cook it for 14 hours with trees that I cut down in people's yards that could be harmful if there was a storm or if a high wind or heavy wet snow or anything. I took all that stuff out, made yards right, and then creamed out the good stuff for smoking and took it up to Bragg Creek and used it to smoke with. That is more economic utilitarianism. We could build these small family farms and they would be amazing. We could build hip barns that were made with 6x6s and 4x4s instead of 2x4s and 1x4s. We could build these buildings so that they were so well fortified they might last 500 years. Some stone and some rock and some concrete and some steel, and then all this beautiful wood that we draw out as a harvest, and then we sell the farm retail. So I'm not talking about socialism here or anything, okay? I'm not talking about everybody. I'm talking about equalizing this wealth, getting rid of the power wolves and developing a whole industry across Canada that's producing non-GMO, natural grains, natural fruit, natural products that we sell to the consumers in these really cool, again, built cowboy style. Like that's kind of the idea, is we're going back 100, 150 years to try to become like we were. And I know it's a dream, but I've been there. I served 500, 600, 700 cowboy meals a weekend in Bragg Creek. Bison brisket, there is no hormones, there's no antibiotics. It's a natural, primal, wild game. And to cook it for 14 hours, you could throw it into your mouth with a little bit of homemade chipotle sauce, and it would just melt like butter. It was truly an amazing feat, but it took a lot more work than just this corporate run processing. Anyways, thanks for taking some time and listening to my thoughts, but I just wanted to tell you that in this small family farming thing, there is a solution. There is avenues we can go to change the way things are so that we're doing the things that we should be doing instead of doing the things that other people want us to do that we would prefer not to do and do what we want to do. Wow, that sounded funny, but it all makes sense. So thanks a lot. Doug Fur out. Welcome to the amazing Doug Fur podcast.